Hey, Brian McCumber here, Tech Money Talks. Today I'm going to be going over FinOps KPIs. This is going to be the usage or spend apportion validation. So what I'm showing on the screen right here is one of the KPIs by the FinOps Foundation, where they're given the formula for basically dealing with shared costs. And it's one of the challenges that most companies are looking to tackle. And it actually shows that in the state of FinOps data here. So if we look on the left here, the chart where it says cost allocation is one of the top priorities for companies and FinOps practitioners, where they're looking to deal with shared costs. And then if we look at the chart on the right, they're talking about organizations that are looking to tackle shared costs, and they're using the proportional approach here. So what we're going to go through is an exercise of how you can actually build this with Power BI. So I have that book, which is called the Power BI for FinOps, and it's basically companies are always looking to make a decision, build versus buy. And I'm going to show you how you can build this quickly with Power BI. So let's dive into it right now. And this is the screen here that you're going to actually be able to create for yourself. And what I put together here was a monthly shared cost dashboard. Here, the KPIs is showing this formula where it takes, where you're breaking things down by department, and you're using the apportionment shared cost approach, where you're basically taking the formula of their actual cloud spend for the month, dividing it by the total, and then multiplying that by the shared cost. And that gives the proportion that you're going to apply to the department. So that's the formula. But right here, most practitioners don't know how to visualize that. And I'm going to show you how to do it within Power BI. So what you're going to have here is now an example of how things are pulled together. So this is an example of a monthly shared cost dashboard, and you can change things by month. So I could change and select a different month here. And upon changing the month, it's going to update the values, and you can see the different charts here. So what we have here for the month of August is platform shared costs of $973,000. And if we look at the upper chart here, this is the monthly spend and shared cost apportionment by department, which means apportionment means that portion that should be allocated to the appropriate department. And it's following that same formula that you saw on the KPI sheet here. Now there's three different bars that are showing per department. And the green one here, we have the CSP monthly spend. So this is what the monthly spend would be per department that comes through. And that could be assigned via tagging, right? But quite often, in most cases, if we look at IT, so IT or technology services, they're typically always carrying the cost of the platform, the shared cost. So if we look at that first bar, the CSP, technology is always having the big portion of the cloud spend here, and it's showing that, but it's not the actual spend that's for the department. And that's where we're applying this formula. So we have a department spend here, where if you subtract that 973,000, this is the actual department monthly spend for IT. So it's the department minus the shared cost. But now that we minus the shared cost, we need to use that apportionment formula to actually break down and divide across all the departments the appropriate shared costs and allocate it appropriately. And that's where this third one comes in here. So now you can see out of that 973,000, 228,000 is really catered towards IT. And that's where the showback or potentially even the chargeback would go. And all the other departments, based upon their spend here, we could see the apportionment broken down. And in the lower portion here, this is where we can see a pie chart, which gives a bigger view. As we could see, the 228,000 for IT, but now we could see some of the other departments that actually have their apportionment taking part of that 973,000. So one of the biggest ones that we see here is the R&D department. Based upon their spend, and we can see in the upper hand here that they're spending $1.1 million a month. So because they have a larger actual spend, they're getting a larger piece of the pie when it comes to shared costs. So now the apportionment is becoming 20% of that shared cost is now being assigned to R&D. And if we look at another department, here's operations. Operations, if we look at the upper part, has a $0.7 million monthly spend for that month of August. So that gives about 13% of the shared costs will be applied to the department operations. And then all the other departments are broken down. So now this is what takes place automatically by looking at the monthly spend, because we put together this dashboard. And I'm going to show you actually how we did it in here. So one of the first things is like the departments. So within an organization, you have departments. It could be like finance, logistics, commercial marketing, IT, like we talked about, or technology services, human resource, research and development, customer support, sales, operations. So these are the department lists. And then we're going to have the actual monthly spend that comes through. So this is a monthly spend summary that can actually be pulled from the cloud service provider, like the AWS Cur or the Azure Cost Management Report. But basically you take that, and based upon the appropriate tagging, you could sum that up into a monthly spend for the department. But you want to get it to eventually get it to a structure like this, where you have department, billing month, monthly spend, and then you can also take note of the billing year. So what we have is a breakdown of the year for 2023, just to show as an example. And then the other table, this will be the table of what's the shared platform cost. So what's the shared cost amount per billing month that we need to keep track of, because now this is what needs to get divided across all the department, and then it is applied to all the departments based upon that formula, which is basically taking a department's monthly spend divided by the total monthly spend, and then you multiply that by the platform share cost, and that gives the apportionment, basically what you allocate or show back or charge back towards a particular department. Hopefully that makes sense. So now you can see here's a data model view where basically with that structure, creating a model for these the departments, the monthly cloud spend, and then the shared costs appropriately. Now within here, a couple of things that I did to actually make this thing work is a few things here. So one of the things is creating the apportionment formula. So if we look at the apportionment formula here, this is the measure, the calculated field that has that formula for actually applying this. So if we look at now we take, what's the apportionment? Well, we're going to take the total monthly spend. So it's taking the total monthly spend. We come up with the department spend, but then here's the thing to factor in. If it's IT, we need to make sure that we're subtracting the shared costs from IT's monthly spend. So we need to make sure that it's actually IT department spend to give IT the appropriate apportionment. And hopefully that makes sense. Now we then identify the current month and then the total shared cost. And then this right here is the actual formula. So if we say the department spend divided by the total monthly spend, and then you multiply that by the total shared cost, that's the formula for having the apportionment that allows you to allocate appropriately based upon their department's usage, what they're actually responsible for as far as the shared costs go. So now if we go to the visuals, we set this up. Now we have the fields in place. We can do things like this, which is basically creating a dashboard view. So we got an option here where we can have a drop down. So we're basically in this drop down, it's a slicer that we can add into here, and we can pull that from there's a thing called a slicer. We pull that in and we actually assign the billing month. So if I select this, you can see that as a part of the data, we got billing month here that we can drag in from the shared costs, and then that's the billing month. Now, the other thing that I put together here is this card. So it's this card view, basically to show the total platform cost for that month. And we can see here that the platform shared costs, and that's what's being dragged into so that we know what is the shared cost for that month. Then if we look at the this next chart, which has the bar chart that we looked at in the beginning, now we actually set the appropriate things. So on the x-axis, what I did was that I added the billing month, and then I added the department. So this allows us to see things broken down by department, and then also to see that we selected, in this case, the month of August in here. So that's on the x-axis, the bottom axis. So now if we want to see how do we create these stacked bar charts, and that's what's using right here. So it's a clustered column chart. That's what I used here, a custom clustered column chart. And in that process for the y-axis, what I created was 3 different options. One is the what I call the CSP monthly spend, is basically dragging in the monthly spend amount. So this is what's coming in directly from the cloud service provider. And then what I have here is what I call the adjusted monthly spend, and what I'm labeling as the department monthly spend. This is really needed for the IT department, because as we can see here, like we talked about, we got this difference of 973,000, and we need to show the contrast, which is what comes in from the cloud service provider. But because not all of it should be allocated towards IT, we need to separate that platform shared costs and show the difference. So like the difference, which is that 1.5 million, that's the actual monthly IT spend for the IT department. And then we have the apportionment. So this apportionment is that calculated field, and that's where it's using that formula that we showed here. And that formula now gives every department its breakdown on what they're responsible for. And you can see, so now it breaks things down, and now it's a fair distribution based on the usage. So if you're using more, then you're allocated more towards a shared cost because you're using more. And that makes sense, right? So fair is fair. And so if we look at the bottom, this bottom chart is pretty straightforward. It's apportionment by department. And basically, we just pull in that apportionment measured field, and then we drag in the department in the details, and that'll give us this pie chart here that we'll see. And we see that the different spend amounts and percentages that we have here. But that's how you create it and pull it together. So this is a tutorial that you have, and then hopefully if you bought into where you can get access to the files and the data, and you can actually work with this. So I put together the files where you can have access to the theme, how this looks and feels. You can actually use this PBIX that has the DAX queries and the formulas, and then the sample data that was put together so that you can see this visualization of a year's worth of data that we could actually go through. But this is a common scenario that most companies are looking to solve within there, and you could actually do this with Power BI. So hopefully this was helpful for you today. All right, take care.